Hi, everyone. We're doing an interview today with a successful franchisor. I love doing these interviews because you start to learn more about a franchise brand and where they're headed. And we're really talking about success in a service-based business. And we've got Warren Ballantyne here from Gutter-Vac. Now, what do you need to know about this? One, Warren's very experienced in the franchising world. In fact, has been chairman of the Franchise Council of Australia, been on many state committees, national committees, a really big supporter of the franchise industry as a whole. He also, when we talk about Gutter-Vac, Gutter-Vac actually was founded 30 years ago and started franchising 25 years ago, so well experienced there. They've been named top franchise in Australia, like the #1 franchise group in Australia. They have a 5-star rating with Fran Data. That's an independent franchise rating system that's actually used by banks to underwrite a franchise group to see if they're actually sound in a business sense. So it's a really important rating for a franchise group to have. So first of all, welcome, Warren. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thanks, Tracey.
Tell
It's
us
great. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Tell us a little bit about how Gutter-Vac started and a bit of your journey through to today.
Well, my business and work life started as a plumber. I did a plumber's apprenticeship with State Public Works, which in those days was called, I think it was called the State Public Works. Anyway, it's had about 5 different iterations over the time. Did my apprenticeship, finished my apprenticeship on a Friday, got married on a Saturday, worked for the Public Works for the next 6 months, resigned and started a business called Ballantyne Plumbing. So for 49 and a half years, my wife and I have been in business. My daughter tells me I'm unemployable, and guess what? She is correct. Absolutely. So we've had a long experience and we've been subjected to business for a long period of time. And it's been a journey that's been quite pleasant. And, I wouldn't mind doing it again in some ways. But we did the plumbing business for 28 years. Had a heap of plumbers, but the one thing that we learned about that was customer service. Very early in our business life, we realised we'd have a uniform, and then we were cleaning gutters by hand, which became really, really quite bad. And back in those days, we started to find unpleasant stuff in the gutters, syringes, and it was nasty stuff, particularly at schools. And then Bundaberg got this influx of redback spiders, which we never had them in Bundaberg. They used to be north, up, from north of Gladstone Rocky, but they came down to Bundaberg, and we started to find redbacks in the gutters. We also had the whole HIV thing started, Hep B, Hep A, Hep C, and that all started. So it was a bit of a nightmare for a few years. I went home one day, we're having a barbecue. I really had enough of hand cleaning gutters. And I said to Anne, I've had a gutful of this. If we're going to keep doing it, we've got to come up with a better way. So I think we should find some vacuum to do that. Anyway, my brother was at the barbecue and he just lost his job. And Anne said, well, why don't you do something about this? And Trevor's, could work it. He's lost his job. He'd be available and make us a few extra bob. And away we go. So technically, that's how Gutter-Vac started. So he went out. He found some equipment. We found some modelling, and it wasn't long after that we did a demonstration to Public Works, and they went, "That's great. What are you going to do about safety?" And that's where Ballantyne Safety was invented at that moment. So we then took all the lessons we've learned from our plumbing business and all the things I was bad at. And what discipline I needed to make them good, applied that to the business, and that was really the start of Gutter-Vac. So it was over about 300 stubbies at a Ballantyne barbecue.
I think that's the case with most great Australian businesses. Usually they were founded at a barbecue over a beer and finding that need and finding a solution to it. So how did you progress from starting the business and you're in Bundaberg to going, hey, this has got legs to it, we could actually franchise this and help other people be in their own business? How did you make that jump?
So my first initial epiphany on that was Ballantyne plumbing is never going to be worth anything. The day will come where I'll just keep plumbing and I'll sell the business to who? No one. No one's going to buy Warren Ballantyne plumbing because it's him. I thought, well, we work it through and then go on the pension and, then what do? You don't wait to die. It's sort of, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I like the idea of this business, but it's a business we could brand, and it's something that is separate from a personal identity, which means it's probably a business we could grow, make valuable, and sell. That was the original motivation. It didn't take me long, honestly. Within a month of thinking like that, I'm thinking, well, maybe we could franchise this. Maybe we could take it to America. This is a global business. Great. So that's the one thing I'm good at, is that sort of dreaming. And then making it happen. That was the next 30 years. So, but that's what was the motivation behind it.
Mm. So we've progressed from, starting out in 2000, it's now 2025. How many franchisees do you have? How many territories are there in Australia?
Yeah, got 92 territories, 62 franchisees. So we've, by those maths, you'd be able to work out we've got quite a few multis. And they're guys that have bought 1, 2, 3, 4. Some have got 5. We've got one that's got 7 territories. And we're still in growth mode, so we still have a long way to go. It's a business that is perceived as probably a small customer base, whereas it's not. It's got a huge amount of opportunity. So, yeah, that's where we are at the moment.
I think I hear that a lot too. People often say to me, Gutter-Vac, are you doing houses? But you actually do a lot of commercial work. Like you do Defence Force work and hotels and hospitals and work all around Australia. It's not little. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. And this is, I've been with you at conferences and out and about talking to people and things. And the question that I always hear people ask you is, can you really make money cleaning gutters?
Yes, you can. So, I remember when we first came to Brisbane, and the reason we came to Brisbane is my bank manager had a house at Petrie, and he said, right, will you go down and clean the gutters on my house and show the real estate agent what you do? So we did that, and off we went. So we were at that, when we then established ourselves in Brisbane, we were charging $85 to clean the gutters of an average low-set 3-bedroom house. And people really did laugh at us. So you're never going to get $85. We get the kid down the road to come up and do it and give him $20 and, sure, okay, well, we're charging $85. So here we are now, 20-odd years later, that same house is about $350 and people will queue up for 2 or 3 weeks to get it done. So, yes, you can make a good living out of Gutter-Vac and of cleaning gutters. It's not the only thing we do, but it is our core business, and it's the business that does most of the revenue. We're well over $30 million a year now as a group, and the franchisees are happy in themselves, and they, the early stage, the greenfield franchisees take 12, 18 months to put roots down and really start to go, but once the roots have dug in, it's a great growth business, yes.
And we'll talk a little bit more about, initial investments in franchising and things as we go along. But, I had someone yesterday asking me about that, and I actually used Gutter-Vac as the example. And I said, I know franchisees who most people get caught up in revenue, and so they see a franchise group and they go, they're doing 2 million revenue. And I'm like, I know Gutter-Vac franchisees who are doing, maybe a quarter of that revenue, but they're making more profit as a dollar figure, not even a percentage, but as a dollar figure than some people who are in franchise groups where they might be doing $1.5, $2 million of revenue. And this I think is the key that most people miss in a service-based business is actually your profit margin is so much higher and what's potential. So when we think about that, what do you think the keys are for a franchisee to make the best profit from a service-based business? What are the keys to being highly profitable?
Well, one of the obvious things is no rent. You're not paying landlords rent, or you're not in food and retail, you're in the shopping centres, so their rent, square meterage, and it's I can't imagine why anyone would do it, but anyway, they do. In the service-based industry, there's some of the suppliers that do just mobile, and some do mobile and stores. So there's a combination. Gutter-Vac is purely business to customer and business to business. So we have both, but we don't need retail. I must say, a couple of our bigger franchise partners have got a warehouse because they've got 7 machines. They can't put them all in those in the front yard, and the councils don't like it either. The neighbours certainly don't like it. So they'll rent a warehouse, but it's not like normal retail. So the average franchise, in most cases, has no upfront running costs as far as rent goes. They have a very high percentage of margin because it's them. So we don't have a lot of products. We don't, you don't have to buy these products to make a living. You can just clean gutters, and you've got your equipment, and you've got a hose, and that's it. So margins can range from 70% down to 20%, just depending on what your underlying running costs are. But very low cost to the business to run the business.
Really? I mean, your major cost is how many staff you have. Like,
Right.
certain
Fuel.
running costs.
Fuel's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. How much does the repeat business factor into increasing profitability? Because people get their gutters cleaned, you don't just get them done once and then that's it. You're going to get a regular customer base. Do you find franchisees build a really big repeat business and that helps their profitability?
Oh, absolutely. The first year is building your customer base. After that, those customers come back. So we've got a reporting system, and every franchise can see it daily. It's live. How many jobs are new? How many repeats? 50% of the work that gets done in Australia by all of our franchisees, on average, across the board, is repeat customers. So if you've got 50% people coming back, it means they're happy, one.
Yeah.
2, you don't have to spend money getting them. You've already got them as a customer. So your marketing is quite low. We don't have a marketing fund. So franchisees can do their own bit of social media, do a newspaper, do a knock on door, do flyers. I mean, it's a very economical way to grow your business. But if word of mouth is, apart from Google, and we have those analytics driven from our reporting system. Apart from Google, word of mouth is the second biggest growth part of our business. So you've got a happy customer, they'll talk to people and they'll use you. So that's where we get it from.
I think that also leads to that, in the service-based business, people forget about that customer service. And you've touched on it a couple of times already. And I'm going to bring up something I've heard you say before that I R&D and tell everybody because I think it was brilliant. One time I heard you say it to a couple of new franchisees, and you said, actually, Gutter-Vac is a customer service business. We happen to clean gutters. And,
Correct.
as you just said, having that impact of customer service, what that actually does to your profitability. And I think that's the key for anyone in a service-based business is if you can bring great customer service, you can have major success. Is that something you've noticed, like franchisees who provide really great customer service, that their profitability is more?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's not costing you anything to get those customers. They're there and they're willing to not only use you, but they're willing to tell everybody they know how good you are. And then those people go, oh, well, gee, the last time I got somebody to do it, they left a mess, they weren't on time, whatever. I mean, there's all these reasons that, and I, for the life of me, I can't understand why somebody goes into business and doesn't give their customers 100% of everything they've got. Why have a business if you're going to treat your customers badly? Makes no sense to me. So, I mean, and I know this is just a little aside, but when we were in Bundaberg and they brought in late night shopping, which was this revolution in shopping, right? And it was in Bundaberg, it was Thursday nights and the supermarket stayed open. It was my goodness. So it was great. I used to be able to go with the family and we go shopping. I never got the chance to do that because I was always working. But it didn't last. It only lasted a month, not even a month. But I knew so many people in Bundaberg in our plumbing business, and I was involved in organisations, and so everybody sort of knew me in some way. I couldn't get through the shopping with Anne because I'd get held up. Oh, Mr. Ballantyne, do you mind? I've got a toilet that's leaking. Could you drop around and fix it? Not in my little notebook. Yes, Mrs. Jones, I'll do that. But the thing that we found was it was all about personalities. It just so happens I fixed toilets in those days, all leaky pipes. And that's why I said that. Gutter-Vac's about customer service. They've got to like you. They've got to engage with you. Just so happens that we clean gutters. In a previous life, I just fixed toilets. So I could apply this principle to 1,000 businesses and it'd work.
And that's the beauty when you go into a service-based franchise is that you can actually impact it with something that costs you absolutely nothing, but will majorly impact your profitability. Just if you know that you're good with customers, you can teach someone how to work at heights safely. You can teach someone how to clean a gutter. And I know this because you've had me on a roof. So I know that I could get up onto a roof safely and what I need to do. But if you can come with a mindset that I really want to help my customers, that's the key in a service-based business, isn't it? That's the biggest skill you need to bring.
I think it's the biggest thing in business.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're selling donuts or, hamburgers or BHP making steel. I mean, it's when you get to the end customer that's going to give you money, you need to make that transaction as pleasant as possible. And I know, giving money to somebody I'm having a bad interaction with really makes my teeth grind. But I tell you what, this is a little aside as well. The other day I was out, we're doing some work at the house, and these kids came along the street and they had a mower and a whippersnipper and they had it set up and they knocking on the door across the road. And when they finished, they came over to me and I said, so what are you boys up to? They said, we're mowing lawns and we're trying to raise some money. I said, what for? Well, I'm going to go to Japan on a trip. Okay. So what's the deal? Oh, I'll mow the lawn for $20. I said, really? You can get more than $20, surely. Anyway, I got them to mow the footpath. They didn't do a great job. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I loved about it was the entrepreneurial skill. And the kids didn't want to put their hand out to mum and dad and say, well, I want money from a trip. I'm willing to do something about it. Now, people enjoy that interaction. When, young guy starts up a Gutter-Vac business or any other business, talks to the customer, builds a relationship, and that's what it's about. So as it turned out, the kids finished and I gave him $30 and said, and he looked at me and went, really? I said, man, you deserve every cent. Now off you go and hope enjoy your trip. But I always found that interaction with my customers as a plumber and in Gutter-Vac when I was in the early days dealing with customers. That's what it's about. It's about that relationship that they want to do business with you. And you know what? They're happy to give you money. What a great interaction that is.
Yeah. So in franchising, when people think franchising, they immediately usually think of like fast food, QSR business, quick service restaurants, and they overlook the power of a service-based franchise business. So in your experience, what types of people do well in a service-based franchise group? Do they have common traits?
I think the one thing is they've got to enjoy other people. If they can't interact with other people, then no service. Well, I don't know what business they're suited to. Probably, the back end of a company doing the paperwork maybe. But the trait that we've got is that people do have a pleasant nature. They have a willingness to interact and listen to people. So they're problem solvers. So, Mrs. Jones rings up and says, I want my gutters cleaned. One of the questions that we do in training is, well, why? Why do you need them clean? What's happening? Well, my gutters are overflowing. I've got this. Oh, okay. Let's see if we can help you with that problem. So it's, that's the trait that we see, and they are certainly the most comfortable.
Something I'm going to do a little aside, something that I've noticed about a lot of your franchisees, lots of really great people in Gutter-Vac, and I think like attracts like where you start to attract it. But something I've noticed, and it's something that's coming across in society today now too, is that we've all been given a bit of a lie over the years, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and you'll be set. And it's just not the case. And something I noticed about a lot of your franchisees is they're really good people who have got good work ethic, and they've often been overlooked. Like they've gone down, if they've been in a job or a role, and nobody's really appreciated who they are. And they've come to Gutter-Vac because they wanted their own business. They wanted that control because they've realised they've been sold a lie and that they've got to take control in their own business. And what I've noticed is they flourish, like they become this new version of themselves, not too woo-woo, but all of a sudden there's this self-respect and they're like, hey, actually, I am good, and nobody's ever appreciated that before. Have you noticed that, or is that just something I've noticed?
No, that's absolutely right. And, we've had this plethora of different people who've come on board, from bank managers, accountants, tilers, roof tilers. But then we've also had a lot of people who've come on that had low education. I mean, let's face it, I didn't like anything at school. For me, the worst year of my life was grade 1, and it never got better. So I couldn't wait to get out of the place. And I left as soon as I possibly could. And there's a lot of people who have come through this system that aren't highly educated but are damn successful, and which tells you a couple of things. One, determination. Two, customer service, or vice the other way around, I don't care, but they're both as important to each other. Determination is super important. Customer service then is super important, and then a willingness to follow the recipe. Sometimes we'll get people that come on board that are quite clever, come in, go through the training, go home, take the recipe book with them, that's what we call it, and decide, no, I'm going to change the recipe for this meal, for this business, and then struggle. Thankfully, we see them last and get through that and go, maybe I should go back to that recipe so the carbonara tastes as good as it's supposed to. And that's what we see happen in 99% of the time. So I'm always thankful for that as well, so that we don't have failures, so we haven't had any failures. So it's a great tick on our scorecard, I think, that they go, follow the recipe, and be successful.
I do have to laugh about you hating school, but for people who don't know, and I found this out from my best friend's daughter, that she came to me because in her Queensland grade 11 business textbook, they were doing a case study and it was on Gutter-Vac. And I remember telling you about that because it was like,
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't like school. Well, you actually ended up in the school textbooks. And I think this is the
Good
thing,
Lord.
the underlying power of, a lot of service-based franchises are not seen because they don't appear from the outside sexy, but it's not about being sexy. It's about, is this business going to be profitable and give me also my life? And we'll talk about that a bit as well. So you've been in business a long time and
Long time.
yep, around Gutter-Vac. What things have you seen over that time in Gutter-Vac that have changed, improved, particularly in technology and how things have progressed? How have you had to use that technology and those thoughts and use it in Gutter-Vac to actually grow to that next level?
Well, I suppose what you said was the answer as well as the question.
Okay.
Technology has been the thing. So when we started Gutter-Vac, there was no internet. There was computers. We had a computer And actually, we had in Bundaberg, we were one of the first plumbing businesses to have a computer. We were second. And we had this computer, and it cost me, now this will blow your mind, it cost me $7,500, right? At the time, you could buy a Peter Brock 5-litre Tirana for $5,500. So that gives you an idea of what that computer was worth. It ran on 17 hertz, which is a bit like, pushing a wheelbarrow with a ton of bricks up a hill. It's slow, and ran on DOS, keystrokes. So no software. Then this thing, the internet came along. We plugged it into our phone system and had that all that stuff happening. We'd only just got mobile phones. We were at that point using UHF radio. So every day was this, oh my God, what? I mean, faxes were the thing. Believe it or not, there's still companies that have got faxes. But anyway, we won't go there. So the fax was this miracle thing. The mobile phone was a marvel. And then this internet thing turned up. And my goodness, how was that going to work? We had our own server, which was always breaking down. So technology has been the thing. I think one of the good things about us is Anne, is my wife, by the way. She has this terminology about continuous improvement. So she has never stopped pushing the business into new places, finding every little crevice and pushing us in there. Because we didn't have a marketing fund, it's always been interesting to see how we market. But because this business is a word-of-mouth business, and really go to your local barbecue or, talk to people. People stopped coming to my house because or stopped inviting me to their place because I wouldn't stop talking about Gutter-Vac and trying to drum up business, So the technology's one. Embracing technology has always been a good thing. But here we are doing a podcast, the first one I've ever done. I'm 71 years old this year, and the business has been going for 25 years. We started it in 1995, and this is the first podcast. So, we're not afraid of learning, Trace. It's technology for the equipment hasn't changed a lot. And, we have franchise partners that say, well, when are you going to improve the equipment? I'd love to, but there's actually nothing out there that is better than what we've got. There's some different, but not better. The signage we've got it sort of tells a story. We're talking about that at the moment. Do we re-sign? Do we rebrand? I'm against it, but but that's a discussion we have here. Our office used to be 2 and then 5 and then 10 and we've got 16. Where will that end? I don't know. We do what we've got to do. So really, the customers haven't changed, the job hasn't changed, the business hasn't, the margins have, and that's simply because everything around us has gone up, so it's gone up. If houses were still 150 grand, we'd still be cleaning gutters for $85. So, I think that's it's hard to answer, but it's easy to answer. Nothing's really changed.
Yeah. And I think that's what you've probably, from my perspective, you've done well is you don't just jump on the technology bandwagon. You actually go, well, will this actually improve the business? But I think what it also proves is that, technology doesn't mean you're all of a sudden you grow your business. You grew a business before there was an internet even available, before people could Google things, and you were still successful then. And so now it's just helped people move further forward quicker. So I know in Gutter-Vac, sort of change path a little bit here, Gutter-Vac has a really strong peer-to-peer support system. And I think that's the key for anyone going to any franchise group is how well do the franchisees talk and help each other? Are they actually a support network? They're not competing against each other. They actually want to help and grow. What sort of things have you put in place to make sure that you're helping the franchisees have that best peer-to-peer support for greater success and greater profitability?
Yeah, So when a franchise partner comes on, we invite them into a Facebook page that's a closed Facebook page just for franchise partners, and they talk to each other. Of course, WhatsApp has become a very popular networking tool. So we've found that the Victorian guys have a Victorian WhatsApp, which we're not included in. So they get to talk privately and anonymously to each other. And New South Wales, I think, has the same, and we don't get involved in that because we try not to have any conflict in that way. I mean, my philosophy has always been by consultation, not confrontation. So if we can do that, then it's a good thing. I think it's great franchise partners talk to each other and help each other, and they're constantly doing that. You'll see a post on Facebook, I've got to do a quote on this building. Anyone got any help, So that is very strong. We see it at conference, really strong at conference. They all get together. We facilitate that with different workshop networking type things. They love a drink, most of them. One of the few conferences where you have 3 hangovers in 2 days, but anyway, we won't go there. But it's they do like to network with each other, and they get on. So we don't put any barriers up. Every franchise territory is built on postcodes, so none of our marketing or advertising can bleed into somebody else's territory accidentally. So if somebody rings the 1300 number, it's linked to a postcode. That postcode goes to that franchisee. It can't mistakenly go to somebody else. So, and we strongly discourage any franchise partner working in somebody else's territory.
So you're eliminating that competition out of things. They're actually wanting to help each other. How important is the role, any good franchise group will have a franchisee advisory council, where they're working with the franchisor in behalf of the franchisees. And you have your GAC, the Gutter-Vac Advisory Council. How important do you see that as a role within, making sure franchisees are supported and they're able to actually, have some control in the business and help and, in the direction?
Oh, it's vital. I mean, I can't see... I couldn't see any franchise brand that could have a reason not to have an advisory council. It's just one of the fundamentals of good business, good franchising business anyway. I mean, let's face it, businesses that aren't franchised have management, and they'll have management meetings to get together and share that. And that's what the GAC is. But we try and get the GAC to be a representation of different parts of the business, like new guys, older guys, multis, so people with experience. So there's 4 of them. We fly them in a couple of times a year, also take them to conference. And they have constituents, just like a politician. You got your local member, you got your local GAC member, and that many of those franchise deal with him. So if they got a problem, they talk to him and he brings it to us. They can talk to us directly, but peer-to-peer people are more open, I think, if they're talking to each other rather than us, because we can be seen as the parent-child relationship. And we try not to do that, but that is what we're sometimes perceived as. So the GAC is really important for communication.
Yep.
So, and the GAC is not voted by us, it's voted by the franchise partners. So we have an election and they're voted on, and we have 2 on, and then next year 2 are replaced. And each year 2 are replaced. So we've always got somebody on GAC that's got experience.
It's really important, isn't it?
Very.
When you think about business, and you're proof of this, business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And in franchising, it's really important if you're looking for something that you're going to invest in, because most franchisees, when they're joining a franchise group, this is about their future, their retirement, providing for their family today. it's really important. Longevity is one of those things that's proof of a brand working, that it can work over many years. And as we talked about earlier with technology changes, that it continues to work. And it's something that I believe people should look at when they're looking to join a franchise, to look for that longevity. Now, the funny thing is you've now got some what I'd call second generation franchisees, right?
Oh, yeah, the kids have taken over. Ha, yeah, we have. We've got some 20, they've been in there 20 years. And so we've got some Maltese that have been in for a long time, selling off, parts of the farm, different paddocks, but keeping a home farm. And their son, at this stage, there's no daughters, it's all sons. So the sons are taking over one of the territories, and they're getting mentored by the parents to go into business, and they're going to run the business. So, yeah, we got quite a few of those that have taken over or worked in the business with dad and mum. That has its own challenges, and like all, particularly fathers and sons, it's if you send them off with the other guys, don't take them out to work with you because it doesn't always work well. And then they'll take over territory. So we've got currently 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 or 4. We've got 4 currently in the process.
4, 5.
Yeah, 4 father sons, and they were all Maltese. So they've sold off part of the farm and kept the home paddock. So.
And that's a big thing.
Sorry about the analogies.
No, that's good. I love analogies. The thing that I always think about is I grew up with my parents in business, is the inside story. You see when you see the bad days, it's not like you're coming in and buying it. And so for kids to actually take over a parent's business, that says a lot more to me, because they actually know warts and all what's going on. But the funny thing is you don't just have kids of them taking over. You've actually got like 4 or 5 people who were staff who have bought the franchise off someone when they're ready to retire. And so, it's a different second generation, but they're employees who have then bought the business. You've got a few of those as well, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've got one just took over, and she was in the business for 7 years as a admin, and then bought the business. It's and then we've got another guy at the moment who's been working for a franchise partner for 5 years. He takes over in October. He's buying 2 of his territories. So, yeah, we've got a few, and we've had a couple of big transactions as well. So we just had $1 million transaction, which was extraordinary, but fantastic. So yeah, we've got a range of transactions that are from $200 to $1 million, and it's all about effort. If the effort's been put in and the assets there, no one's going to buy a business for $1 million if it's not worth it. Yeah. So yeah. So when we go back to one of your first questions, can you make money out of gutter cleaning? Yep.
And I just did a quick add up in my head. You said you've got 62 franchisees in 90 plus territories. When we just added that up, between kids taking over and employees buying that business, that's probably more than 10. We're talking 10 to 15% of your network has actually come from seeing it firsthand. And to me, that's a big indicator, because, as I said, they know exactly what's happening. They know the good, the bad, the ugly, the fantastic. But the biggest thing, and I've trained a few of them taking over, they're like, well, I can make more money in the Gutter-Vac business than I can elsewhere else. So it seems kind of crazy not to take over. I know what it's going to take to keep building it. And the exciting thing is they always come in and go, oh yeah, I can do it better. We're going to grow it to the next level. So even selling them, like I know you had recently had a multi-unit sell, for $1 million. Like there was still growth in that business. It hasn't topped out.
Not at all. It's already grown.
Yeah. So let's talk about that return on investment a little bit. I'm a believer that a good franchise business will mean that in your first franchise term, so anyone listening, you sign up for a franchise term, usually it's around about 5 years. that in that time, not only will you make enough profit for your family to live and survive and, hopefully have some extra good stuff as well, but you should also be making enough extra profit as well that you can pay back that initial franchise capital investment in the first term, which basically means if you sign on for a second term in your franchise, your business has already paid itself back. So in effect, you've almost got a free business. Do you, in your experience, find that happens in Gutter-Vac? Are people, getting their initial capital back within that first term?
Yeah. Well, they use the acronym, initialism, ROI, so return on investment. We, in ours, depend on what people buy. If they buy a greenfield, they can get an ROI before the end of their second year. So that's a great return, which means they get 2.5 years of profit they can keep that they were using to pay back debt. For a transfer, usually 3 years, they get an ROI. And we find most franchise partners renew at 5 years, and then at 7 years, they'll start to think about moving on. That's clever. And we've got a guy right now that's decided he wants to sell in 2028. So, see, that's really smart.
Yeah.
That's really smart. And he's 2.5 years. He's going to start now. So we'll set it up. And over the next 2.5 years, if somebody pops along that says, I want to buy, he'll sell. But he's not going to wait, and say, well, look, I want to sell. I've decided I want to sell next week. Let's do it. And then at the end of next week, say, how come we haven't sold it? Come on. So planning, estate planning, like you do with your life, business planning is super important. I think, Tracey, we would agree that everybody that comes on, buys a business, the day they buy it, they should start to plan to sell it.
Yeah.
And, that if you're going to buy shares, you buy shares for asset, but you also buy them when they go up, you sell them. That's what it is. And business is no different. So I highly recommend people, when they look at it, sometimes you get a queer reaction to that where people sort of think you're trying to push them out. It's not the case at all. It's just good planning, and, people said to me, well, when are you going to sell it? I haven't thought about that yet. So
I don't know what you'd do. What would you do? You love being involved and doing things like you. I don't know if you could particularly retire and sit around and do nothing, or you'd need a great big shed to tinker in.
Well, beginning of the year, we sat down and decided I'll have Wednesdays off. Right, that's Anne has Fridays off, and I'll have Wednesdays off, and. So where are we now? We're the 15th of May. I've had one Wednesday off so far, and I had that off because I had some jobs I wanted to do at home. So I did those jobs and came to work next day satisfied. I don't know. And that is, the word retirement freaks me out a bit. I've my whole life I've always worked. I'd worked when I was a plumber. I'd do that, come home and renovate a house or build a house, and weekends do more about the house or be involved with the kids' sport. And that's the other magic. I've never missed I never missed a football match that Stuart played. I've never missed a dance of Stedford that Gillian played, even though it would have been nice to miss some of those. But she did a great job. And then speech and drama. Both Stuart and Gillian did speech and drama, and we went to every one of those. I don't know why, but we did. And but I always felt that was a privilege I had because I worked for myself. I could schedule when I didn't want to work. I wasn't lazy. I didn't do that, even though there was plenty of times I scheduled off to go and play golf, or go fishing, or go on holidays or something. But I could do it without affecting our revenue and our business. And never let a customer down.
Yeah.
So that's how we managed our life.
And that's something you've instilled into your franchisees as well, is that they're not there just to work all the time and just have a business. Like a lot of Gutter-Vac franchisees seem to have a very good lifestyle as well attached to it. Is that something that you see?
Absolutely. Well, we say to them, don't do your numbers on anything more than 40 weeks a year. Because the simple fact is there's 12 weeks a year that you won't work, and that's Christmas and Easter and your birthday, or, rainy days and there's times you want to have off. So do all your modelling on 40 weeks. Now, if everyone could have 12 weeks a year off, that'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
3 months a year off. Well, but it's a fact, and there's no use doing your numbers and modelling on 52 weeks a year because it just won't happen. And I say, complain, work, I just work. I've had plenty of time off, but when it suits me and when it suits what I've got to do. So, and what we do here, the only way that Anne and I have been able to have time off is put more people on. So we've employed staff to do what we were doing. And I've got a general manager now that takes, a heap of the weight that I used to carry. Matter of fact, I sit in my office some days, some nights, it is nights at times, and think, how did I do all that? What Mace's doing now, how did I fit all that in? And I just don't know. I still don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's there now, so he's doing it. I just keep shoveling the coal into him and he keeps doing it. So it's a great group of people here. They're good. And they'll work as hard as they have to work to do what they have to do. So that, and then when there's time to relax, we can relax. Yeah. So it's all right.
I think that's important too when people don't start a business. Like, yes, we talk about that profit is important because you've got to be making money, but people don't do it just to be Scrooge McDuck sitting in a vault of money. It's what that money can provide for their life. And I think this is what people miss in a service-based business is that if you want to have Thursdays afternoons off to go to your kids' rugby game or to coach your kids' team, like I know Murray coaches, one of your franchisees coaches his kids' AFL teams every Tuesday and Thursday nights, so he doesn't work after 4:00. And that's the benefit of a service-based business. You can just close out your books at that time and make it fit around your life as well. It's that flexibility. It's not like you've got a shop front that has to be open at 9 in the morning and shuts at 10 o'clock at night. You can change your schedule to actually have that impact. You kind of mentioned it, and I want to dig a little deeper on that. You said, you should start with an exit strategy. How important is it, do you believe, especially in a franchise business coming in, to see that other franchises have successfully sold their business? Like we talked about that, recently you had a multi-unit sell for $1 million, right? Yeah. How important is it that coming in and you're about to invest in a franchise that you can actually see that when I do decide to leave, that it is actually a saleable asset? Is that really important in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing we encourage franchise partners to do is to talk to other franchises. So, I would, even though the guy that sold his territory and he sold it for $1 million, I can tell you right now that if I gave you his number and you were a new franchise partner and I said, give this guy a call and ask him how he did it, he would tell you. And we encourage our franchise partners to talk to each other. So we have a portal, right? So every week you've got to put your sales reports in and do all that stuff. And we generate data results from that. So there's a portal you go on and you can see where every franchise partner's revenue is live that day. And you can then see how many of their customers are repeat customers, how many are commercial jobs, how many are domestic jobs. You then can go down the bottom and see where is it coming from. Is it Google or is it word of mouth, whatever. So you can look at all that free. It's part of your package. So then if I was down the bottom of that scale of revenue, I'd be ringing this guy up here saying, how the hell are you doing that? What are you doing to get there? This is where I am after 3 months. That's where you are after 7 years. So what were you doing at 3 months? How did you get there? To me, that would be my inquisitive and I'd want to achieve. So I don't like to reinvent the wheel. So if I could talk to somebody and shortcut going from there to there, quick time, low cost, because I've also got Scottish blood, I don't like, how can I do that without spending a lot of money and do it quick? Right, that's what I did. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I do. And we encourage them to do that. How many do it? it's up to them.
You know what I've seen some of your franchisees do too, and it's true. People often talk about that in franchising, like, oh, the franchisees will help each other and talk. They actually do in Gutter-Vac. Like sometimes people say it, but they actually do. And I was talking, it was one of your members of GAC because I saw them, and one of them had actually flown in earlier and went and did like half a day with another franchisee. And that franchisee's like, yeah, come in. And they took him in the office and they just opened up their books and showed him everything. And they had this whole conversation about what worked, and they were doing a sharing. It wasn't just one person sharing with the other. They went, oh, I do this, I do this. And I think they all walked away going, that's amazing. And this is what you miss. Like, you've been in business. Like, think back to your plumbing business. Could you have rocked up to another plumber and said, hey, tell me what's working? And they would sit down and open their books and show you everything?
I used to. I did. I used to. I was friends. Well, some of the successful plumbers went through tech college when we did our apprenticeship. So there was a few of us that went through tech together, and we then went out and we became contractors, and we interacted quite a bit over the years. So yeah, I was never backward in asking somebody, how the hell did you do that? Or let's do this together. I think we can be rewarded much better if we do it together. So no, I've always been interactive with people like that, and I must say, even though I'm always been fiercely independent and determined, and it's a good trait or it's a bad trait, but I'll never give up. And you know what? I said it once on LinkedIn. If at first you don't succeed, give up. And I didn't get to put the second part in because it was ravished by people saying, no, you can't do that. The whole part of that is, if at first you don't succeed, change direction, and look for a different path to success, because, it's no use fishing in a pond that's got no fish in it. You've got to, fish, there's no fish in this pond. Okay, I'll go to a different pond, but I'm not going to stop fishing. So my business life has been determination with finding the result to get what I wanted. But I had to take a lot of detours to get there.
I think when I'm listening, because I didn't know that about you, I've been working with franchise groups for 20 years, so I get to see a lot of the inside. And one of the things that I really notice is especially when you're talking to founders of franchise groups, the number of their characteristics and value sets of how they've been put into the brand. And like listening to you, I'm like, man, you were doing things that were not common before you even started Gutter-Vac, which is actually added to its success. Understanding customer service, asking other people what's succeeding, knowing what good work ethic is. Like, when I listen to you now, I go, wow, I look at all the great things in Gutter-Vac and I go, actually, they're things that have come from your value sets, what you've actually imprinted into the Gutter-Vac brand. So, if you're listening to this and you like Warren, you're probably going to like Gutter-Vac, because...
Well, I think it's a bit of a joint venture. Anne and I, we've been married 50 years. For a start, holy mackerel, I must be a tremendous guy. Yeah, you are.
He's very patient.
Yeah. One of us is tolerant. But we've worked in business together for 49 and a half years. Anne's, gone off and worked at the school as stenographer, and they call them in those days. But we always had the plumbing business, so we'd come home and they were doing the books and all that. But her continuous improvement mentality, which at times frustrated the hell out of me, because why do we have to change that? That's great. She said, well, because that's not going to be great. We need to make that better. So she's always pushed that barrier, and I've always challenged her on that. But then women are always right. That's
well done.
That's historical fact, I'm afraid. But, she's always been right. But then she always challenges me too. So I'll have epiphanies and great ideas, and she'll sort of just challenge it a bit and make me think about it. And I'll think, yeah, okay, well, it's a crap idea. I'll go in a different direction. But so I think the business is a result of both of us. It's certainly not just me, that's for sure. And it's not just Anne, and it's not just both of us, but there's 14 other people up there. And everybody brings stuff to the business. I mean, we've got Mace, the general manager's come in, and he's come from a different background. So he's being Gutter-Vac-ized. In another 12 months, his perception of Gutter-Vac will be different than when he first came in. So I think that's fantastic. I love to see that. Maybe that's what I'm waiting for. See, my son works in the business with us. He has done for years. My daughter lives in America. But I think they'll come back to Australia. And so we see the business as a legacy business rather than something we want to just flog off. And I see the family staying in it. And if that's the case, then the family values will stay.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all your years of experience in franchising, say someone's sitting here listening to our interview, listening to you, and they're thinking about becoming a franchisee. What do you think would be your top tips for them to consider before they decide to invest in a franchise, be it Gutter-Vac or something else? What would be your top things that you would recommend to them to do before they, sign on the dotted line?
Have a look at the brand, the model. Is it successful? If it's successful and you like what they do and you can see yourself doing that each day, then are you willing to follow the recipe? If you're going to take the recipe away and change it, don't buy the franchise. Leave it alone. It's what it is because it's not broken. It's what it is because the recipe works. It gets massaged along the way over 25 years. It's happened. But the recipe is fundamentally the same recipe. Treat customers with respect. Give them what they want. Make it affordable and reasonable, but you've bought a business and you're entitled to your reward. They're the things, they're the fundamental recipe, but then the recipe of the business is in the training. Follow it. If you're not going to do that, look somewhere else.
So, again, using your experience, once they decide to get started, what would be your keys to a franchisee to make their business as successful as possible? What things do they need to do once they are actually a franchisee? Yes, follow the recipe, but what other things are really important, do you think, in business?
Well, different things will be received by different franchise partners. So we got an 11-day training course, so it's a long time. You're here for a long time, but you get exposed to everything. What you've got to do is pick out the parts that resonate with you. So, for instance, if you can't deal with people, like if you can't interact with people face to face, but you still want to be in the business, then you probably need to get somebody that can interact with people. So you're going to sit at home, run the business, do the quotes and manage that, but you've got somebody that's the face of the business that you can do that. And we've had that happen. Look, I think the recipe is the secret, but I know what you're saying. Once they go back to their own home and the euphoria of training and all that's over, now it's the hard yards. I think the business planning and the goal setting that's done at training, that needs to go home and be put on the wall. And then you need to look at that regularly. You need to get support. We've got support, a support guy here that will contact them constantly. You need to put your hand up and ask questions when it's tough. And it gets tough, gets lonely when you're in business as well, very lonely. And Trace, we all know, no matter how many people you've got around you in an office, it can be really lonely. So you've got to be willing to put your hand up and ask a question.
Yeah.
Keep communicating.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. There's so many valuable gold nuggets in there for people to take away. The thing that I love most is that, yes, you can make money cleaning gutters. And I think, people forget how much you can actually make and that it's not just, residential houses. There's big commercial contracts and it's a proven system. And 25 years of franchising, 30 years in business. You're an overnight success. Well done. But what I think Gutter-Vac is a demonstration of is a good Australian business. It was created out of a need, at a barbecue over a beer, and the whole way through, you've just used values of, being good to our customers, showing good customer service, being good to your franchisees, and creating a community of people who can all succeed together. And there's many people's lives that you have changed through Gutter-Vac. You and Anne putting your money where your mouth was and putting in the hard work and actually helping people have a good Australian-based business that's providing for their families and, in fact, passing it on and having that legacy to their family. So congratulations from me because, you've made...
I got one question for you.
Yeah.
Imagine the first franchisee. What was he thinking? What were they thinking? There's an industry that didn't exist. There was nothing in the yellow pages. No one paid anyone to clean their gutters except for the kid down the street. And you're going to be the first franchisee. I take my hat off to him. How brave were they to do that? Yeah. So the other 92 that have followed them have at least had something to look at that's happened before. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to put details into the show notes of the podcast. So if you want to reach out to Gutter-Vac, but it's pretty simple, guttervac.com.au. You can get all the information there. Reach out to Warren and the team at Gutter-Vac if you're thinking about joining a franchise group, having your own service-based business. I highly recommend Gutter-Vac. I've seen the P&Ls. I know you can make money cleaning gutters. And also, too, if you're just listening and going, I think I actually need my gutters cleaned, head over to the website. One of the local franchisees will be able to help you. And sometimes that's actually the best way to check out a business is to actually get someone to go and do your service, or maybe a member of your family, because hopefully, your area is vacant for you to take over. But thanks so much for your time, Warren. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone listening chucks in a comment underneath this. And thanks, Warren, for his time, because after, 25 years in franchising, Warren's probably one of the most experienced franchisors in Australia you're going to find, and just so giving and helpful for us all. So thanks, Warren.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great.